My first recommendation is to avoid making spelling mistakes by using spell check. Here are some examples of the many spelling mistakes made by students. You can see the mistakes are underlined in red, so they're easy to correct. Use technology to your advantage. Make it do the work for you here. My second recommendation is to pay attention to the vocabulary you learn in the module and to reuse the right vocabulary. Be careful with false friends. Let's have a look at some examples. This word, lecture. In the module you were asked, what do you think of the lectures in your university programme? Here is what some students wrote. Only one of these examples is right. Can you see which one? First example is wrong. Lecture is not about reading. In the second example, the student should have said lectures. The same in the third example. The fourth example is the right meaning of lectures. Let's recap. Lecture means this in French. Lecture does not mean reading, and the person who gives a lecture is a lecturer. Let's look at another example. This word, course. You were also asked to think about your initial impression of this English course after the first 2 weeks. Here is what some students wrote. None of these examples are correct. In the first example, the student should have written lectures or classes. In the second example, the student meant the subject or the content. In the third example, the student meant class or workshop. And finally, here in this last example, where the student said cursus, a French word, that's where they meant course. Let's recap. This is what a course means in French. It doesn't mean a lecture, and the course means this in French. It doesn't mean this. Let's look at one last example. In the education module, you watched a video about the flipped classroom, and you were asked to think about the flipped classroom model. What do you think about it? Here is what some students wrote. None of these are right. They should have said the flipped classroom. Don't automatically go to Google Translate to check your words. Use the words that you have learnt in the module. This brings me to the third point. Watch out for Frienglish. Now, these are expressions or words that you use in French that you shouldn't translate literally. I'll give you some examples so that you can avoid them in the future. There are many drawbacks, but there are two sides to every coin. I love face-to-face classes. I have never experienced this way of learning. The article argues or points out that technology offers positive changes. My fourth recommendation is to pay attention to register. So think about the words you use and if they are appropriate for academic English. These two examples are not. My last recommendation is to beware of certain expressions that you probably learnt at school. The first example is this word, nowadays. If I had €1 for every time a student started their writing with nowadays, I would be very wealthy. However, in most of these examples, nowadays is used incorrectly. Let's look at the dictionary definition of nowadays. Nowadays means at the present time, but very importantly, in contrast with the past. And most students don't use it this way. They just use it to mean now. Let's look at some examples in context. All of these examples come from the press. And you can see in all the examples, wherever nowadays it's used, it's because the writer is talking about the past and contrasting it to the present. So that's how you use nowadays. It's always to compare the present to the past. Another expression you may have learnt at school is according to. Here are 6 examples of what students wrote. However, in these 6 examples, only 2 of them are right. Can you see which ones? You never say according to me. You can say according to recent studies or according to a person, but not according to me. Let's recap. So according to plus another person, a writer, a researcher, plus a thing, studies, research, the media, but never me. So those are my 5 recommendations for improving your writing. I hope you will take note of them and they will help you. Bye-bye.